Okay, Cuyahoga County Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee for Wednesday, April 4th, 2018 will be called to order. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma.
Here?
Mr. Miller. Here. Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent at the moment. Mr. Shrine. Mr. Shrine is absent. Ms. Baker. Here. There is a quorum.
Okay, thank you. If you could, is there any public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
Okay. And if I could have approval of minutes for the March 21st, 2018 meeting?
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if we could have our first matter referred to committee.
Resolution number 2018-0071, authorizing a revenue-generating ground lease agreement with Pace Aviation in the amount not to exceed $907,179 to facilitate private construction of an airport hangar and related facilities to be located at the Cuyahoga County Airport.
Okay, and if you could, just please state your name for the record.
Yes, Mr. Chair. John Myers on behalf of the Department of Public Works.
Okay, Mr. Myers, how about an explanation as to this resolution here?
Sure. At the county airport, we were approached by an interested party of building their own hangar. Pursuant to our historic structure of relationships at the airport and under FAA guidelines and rules, we don't sell the property, we do a longer-term land lease. So that's what we're here for today, essentially, primarily as a land lease. This is for about 1 1/3 acres, part of permanent parcel 821020001 in the city of Highland Heights, to build an approximately 62,000 square foot hangar. The term is 20 years, plus a 10-year term option at the lessee's, in this case, Pace Aviation's option. The square footage is based upon market rates and our own internal and external analysis of that based upon 25 cents per square foot. The two main sources of revenue are fuel flow fees, which essentially is a tax on the fuel out there to help fund operations at the airport, as well as the per square foot rate, which is just land. So by virtue of this lease, they will be building and investing around approximately a $3 million hangar for their own use, and which only helps the airport by further economic activity. And this lease is leveraging that $3 million investment here in Cuyahoga County and creating additional jobs, both construction and ongoing operational.
Okay, and so this is a private hangar?
Correct.
And are there any other private hangars? I'm not familiar with it, so are there any other private hangars on the facility
Yes,
out there?
almost all the hangars are private and are set up this way. I failed to mention that at the end of the 20-year term and the 10-year renewal, that the hangar building will transfer to the county's ownership, so we would own the hangar and the fee simple together.
Okay. How long do one of these hangars generally last? What's the lifespan of a hangar?
They have an average, the lease requires them to build at least a 50-year average lifespan building, which is sort of a common generic number. They're also required to maintain the building in a appropriate and business class fashion.
Right, okay. Any questions of my colleagues? Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Meyer, how much money will we receive in rent in the first year on an annual basis?
Good question, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I don't have the first year broken down in front of me. Excuse me one second. Approximately $25,000 in ground rent. And then, well, I'm sorry, $25,000 would be a base minimum for fuel flow. So regardless of how much fuel they use, they have to pay at least a minimum $25,000. So that's one source of revenue. The rent itself, the first year, would be $15,475. And that rent increases every year.
So do we receive money from this both on the base rent and on the fuel flow?
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Miller, yes. Both those sources provide the total number that you see before you over the term of the lease.
And since we don't know about what the actual fuel flow is going to be, I presume the 907,000 is an estimate.
It is because in case it's higher, this is not a huge hangar though, so it probably, maybe in all practicality, won't be higher than that, but that's a minimum that they have agreed to pay to make sure that there's money coming in. They could choose to not fuel their own planes. They could buy it from the fixed base operator on site, which would mean they're not selling any fuel, but they still would be obligated to do the fuel flow minimum.
Okay, fine.
All right, thank you. Ms. Baker? And we also want to recognize that Ms. Conwell has joined us.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the language reads, in the amount not to exceed 900,000 to facilitate private construction of an airport hangar. So is that 900,000, what will that be spent on?
The collected revenues, Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Baker?
Well, this 900,000
That's
is money
the-
that we will be collecting?
Correct, it's revenue generating.
And is that over how much, what period of time?
Over that, the term of the lease.
Is that 20 or 30
Yes,
years?
that's over the 20 years.
20
the
years.
initial term.
Okay. And is there, if I may continue, is there any ask from the county for any support through economic development or any special loans or grants or anything like that to help facilitate this $3 million hangar?
Mr. Chairman or the Councilwoman, no, this is their investment, and we're happy that they're investing at the airport and creating construction and ongoing jobs. So this is meeting their needs for their corporate plane use, and they have not asked us for any fiscal support. They will be responsible for, this will actually take what's currently not on the tax duplicate and they will be responsible for the taxes for that 1 1/3 acres, and they're responsible for building it, for maintaining it, for all utilities. So there's no cost to the county. It's only all a plus, all revenue.
All right, sounds
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a good deal.
Yep, I agree. Any other questions, Ms. Conwell, anybody? Okay,
I have
all right.
one more question.
Mr. Miller?
My question is, since this contract was supposed to start on 4/1, which is a couple days ago, are you requesting passage on second reading suspension?
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for bringing that up. Mr. Chairman, I would ask, even though the date, they have to build this first, so the effective rental date starts when they get their certificate of occupancy. But it's important that the lease be signed at the earliest so they can maximize the construction season.
Okay. With that, I'll make a motion to move this forward, 2018-0071 on second reading suspension so that we can get this contract moving along. Could I have a second on that? Okay, I have a second. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council.
Mr. Miller?
Could I ask one more question?
Oh, we have one more question. Sorry about that.
It's when we expect construction to be
Good
completed.
question.
Their hope is this fall, that, before the snow flies, that it will be operational. But they're in charge of the construction, so I can't speak to that timing. It's under their control.
And is the agreement in effect for 20 years after that date, or is it end on this 3/31/2038 regardless?
That's when it's scheduled. At some point, we probably will have to amend to have the term reflect the 20 years from when they get their certificate of occupancy, which they're under obligation to do at all due haste.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you could read the second resolution here?
Resolution number 2018-0072, making an award on requisition number 41694 to United Survey, the amount not to exceed $2,955,017 for the 2018 sewer rehabilitation program.
Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record?
Dave Marquardt from the Department of Public Works.
Okay, Mr. Marquardt, if you could explain what this resolution is about?
This resolution is for awarding a contract for the 2018 sewer rehabilitation program. The project involves sewer repair and rehabilitation of sanitary sewers in the various communities where the county has and provides sanitary sewer services for those communities. The contract is for a 2-year period, 2018 through 2020. Bids were received on February 10th, 2018. There were 9 bids pulled from OPD. 3 bids were submitted for review. Bidders met all of the bidding requirements except there were non-compliant regarding diversity goals. All bids were reviewed by the Office of Procurement and Diversity. The lowest bidder requested a waiver regarding diversity goals, stating that they were an SBE and are contracting with a WBE to accomplish the project, but there were no minority business enterprises that were available to perform this specialty type work. So the other 2 bidders also requested full waivers of the diversity requirements. Based on the review of the Office of Procurement and Diversity, they determined we could award to the lowest bidder. Department of Public Works determined the lowest and best bidder was United Surveys Incorporated with a bid of $2,955,017, which is 15.6% below the engineer's estimate of $3.5 million. Funding for this program comes from sewer district user fees, and the anticipated contract start and completion dates, it begins on April 30th of 2018 and goes through April 30th of 2020. And the Department of Public Works is recommending award of the contract to United Survey.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions from my colleagues? Ms. Baker?
Thank you for that, and I guess the question would be, various county sewer districts, it seems that most, if not all, counties or areas in our have a need for this type of rehabilitation. So how do you choose what sewer districts get the rehabilitation and which don't? And can you tell us which are included in this?
Yeah, we haven't determined where this work will take place yet.
Oh.
These services are really to supplement our sewer maintenance workforces. They actually do similar work, but sometimes the complexity, which might include the depth of the sewer, requires us to use this contract. Otherwise, our own maintenance forces will go ahead and accomplish the work. And usually the work is of a nature where a sewer collapses or some repair work is needed that we discovered when we cleaned the sewer and televised the sewer and found that there was an immediate need for a repair. And so if there's a very peak demand, we may need to use these services. If there's complexity involved, we may need to use them then as well.
Just to follow up, the not to exceed number is a very specific number, 2,955,017. How do we come up, if we're not sure where this money is going to be applied, how do we know specifically what that number is?
The contract has specific pay items that relate to the work that we've done, similar work in the past. So we itemize and really come up with a best estimate of what we think we're going to need for services. And that's how the contract is prepared.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Ms. Conwell, and then Mr. Miller.
Through the chair to Mr. Marquette, who was the last company that was contracted for this work?
I am not sure who the last was. We've used Lane Liner for prior lining of sewers, but not this particular project. It may be diversified infrastructure services for the past contract, but I don't have that with me.
But it wasn't this company.
No.
And does the engineer check the work after the project is complete due to the low nature of the estimate from the engineer's estimate?
Yes, we inspect the work that's being done
While they're doing it or after the project is complete?
while they're doing it.
Okay.
So the work order will be generated, and it defines the pay items and the type of work that's necessary for that particular work order. And then our inspection forces will go out and watch them do the work and make sure that it's being done according to the specifications.
Doesn't that concern you that there's a big difference between our engineer's estimate and, I mean, we want to save dollars, I get that, but was there any concern with that? Most times the bidders are, not that far apart from our engineer's estimate.
With these types of services, it somewhat depends on whether the company wants the work or not, or needs the work. So they do vary a good bit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Marquardt, what was the MBE goal on this project?
The MBE goal was 17%.
And is the Department of OPD aware of minority contractors that are available? I presume that this number was derived from information that came out of the disparity study.
Good afternoon, Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, when we set the diversity goals, we set the goals for the minority and women-based enterprises on the availability data provided in our latest disparity study. So in this case, there was an overall goal of 7% SBE, 17% MBE, and 6% WBE. So that's our goal, is our desired distribution. However, when a prime submit, he may not hit those exact numbers. So they can get a waiver based on their effort to provide inclusion based on those numbers. In this case, just as, while we did note it, as Mr. Marquardt mentioned, that they did not have any MBE participation, the prime is an SBE vendor, and they did have 6% participation by WBE. So based on good faith effort, they were determined to be compliant, although they did not meet the distribution.
Since the disparity study indicated that minority firms are available in this field to the tune of 17%, which is a considerable number, do we have any understanding as to why none of the three bidders were able to find any and they all requested waivers?
There's a couple of reasons. The percentages are based on the construction industry. So sewers is a subset of that industry, and also depending upon timing, availability, and outreach, the MBEs may not have been available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So what you're saying is there are other factors that also come into consideration when you guys are making those determinations with dealing with the realities of the industry itself, it said timing, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Marquardt, what type of time constraints are we under on this?
I believe this can go through the full
Okay.
readings.
Okay, that's fine. That's why I asked.
I'll move. We recommend Resolution 2018-0072 for second reading.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for second reading on 2018-0072. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you. Madam Clerk, the next resolution, please.
Resolution number 2018-0073, rescinding resolution number 2017-0069, dated 4/25/2017, which declared that public convenience and welfare requires resurfacing Coventry Road from Cleveland Heights North Corporation Line to Shaker Boulevard in the cities of Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights.
Okay, Mr. Marquardt, if you could, an explanation on this resolution?
Yes, on April 25th of 2017, council had approved the executive to enter into agreement with Cleveland Heights to participate as part of our 50/50 resurfacing program. The program had included at that time the resurfacing of Coventry Road. The county at that time had committed to $250,000 out of our road and bridge funds through that 50/50 program for Coventry. Since then, Cleveland Heights had not met their overall funding goals for the project. I believe they didn't receive some Issue 1 funds that they anticipated for the project, so they couldn't proceed with the resurfacing. Cleveland Heights then came back to the county and requested the county to participate in the resurfacing of Warrensville Center Road and Cedar Glen Parkway in Cleveland Heights using that same 50/50 program. The two roads, Warrensville Center from Mayfield Road to Noble Road and Cedar Glen Parkway from Euclid Heights Boulevard to Cleveland Heights West Corp line, have an estimated cost of $581,000 for both roads, with a participation of $250,000 of county road and bridge funds and $331,000 from Cleveland Heights. So Public Works reviewed their request and determined that their proposed roads have similar pavement condition ratings as the prior request in 2017. And I apologize if this is confusing, but Warrensville Center was rated a poor. Cedar Glen is fair to poor rating. And so we did determine that rather than pave Coventry Road, we were getting just as much benefit out of Warrensville Center and Cedar Glen, and that the county highway system will benefit from that resurfacing project. So based on that, the Department of Public Works is requesting that that original 2017 resolution be rescinded, which is what we're discussing now.
Right.
The next resolution, we will be asking for approval to enter into an agreement with Cleveland Heights for resurfacing those two roads I spoke of.
Okay, so in short, the resolution we're on right now, you're asking us to rescind because Cleveland Heights could not come up with the funding for that particular road.
Yes.
And then alternatively, the next resolution, which we'll get to, but you're asking us to proceed with the county giving $250 as part of the total package, Cleveland Heights supplying $331 to make those conditions on those roads work.
Yes.
To repair those roads.
Yes.
So it's a similar kind of a trade-off. What was the total value or the total the total price on the Coventry Road that they couldn't come up with those funding?
Coventry Road was an estimated total of $1.85 million.
Okay, so it was substantially
Yes. it
more
was a
money.
Much
Okay.
larger project.
Okay, understand. Okay, any questions from my colleagues on this? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, and okay, Ms. Conwell has a question.
So the nature of this resolution is basically because there were some contracts signed, so we have to legally get out of the agreement, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and I'm assuming we want to get out of this as soon as possible, so we don't have any lingering issues here.
Yes.
On this, okay. With that, I'll make a motion for second reading suspension on R 2018-0073. I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, and then if we could, Madam Clerk, just for the record, read the next resolution here.
Resolution number 2018-0074, declaring that public convenience and welfare requires resurfacing of a road and parkway located in the city of Cleveland Heights in connection with the 2018 Operations Resurfacing Program.
Okay, and then we had an explanation, full explanation from Mr. Marquardt regarding this particular legislation. And I'm assuming again that the timeline is we want to get moving on this project.
Yes.
For Cleveland Heights. Any questions, any final questions?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
What's the time schedule on the resurfacing of Warrensville Center and Cedar Glen Parkway?
Well, it's a locally constructed project, so I don't know their exact time schedule, but they want to do it this year. So as with any resurfacing project, I would expect that we're very close to them wanting to move forward.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion for second reading suspension on R 2018-0074.
Second.
And I have a second from Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Is there any, thank you, Mr. Marquardt. Is there any other miscellaneous business from members of the committee? Okay, and seeing none, are there any members of the public out there?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
No one is signed in.
Okay. All right, and this is second reading suspension, yes. Okay, with that, I'll have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and this committee shall adjourn at 10:30 a.m.